Shake it. And we go live, right? We go live to Sussex, England by satellite this morning to Sussex Recording Studios and Paul and Linda McCartney. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever.
Good morning, America.
Great having you with us. Happy Thanksgiving. Wait a minute, Linda, you're American, Paul, you're British, right? Are you celebrating Thanksgiving, you guys?
We are indeed.
We are.
Well, how are you celebrating? You gonna with a turkey or what?
Yeah, we're actually vegetarians, so we've got a macaroni turkey, would you believe?
I don't know, should I?
Yeah.
Yes, you should believe that one, David.
We shall. Paul, do you get tired of hearing Yesterday or singing it?
No. He said, lying through his teeth.
Ah.
No, I don't actually. I like it, but I do hear it quite a lot.
Who were you?
I don't really get time.
Who were you writing about? When you said why she had to go, I don't know, she wouldn't say. Were you writing about Linda?
The Queen, wasn't
No, your wife.
Watch it. You clever, quick devil, you.
Oh, thank you.
Linda, you met, I mean, there you were in your early 20s when you met Paul, right? Mm-hmm. And what was your first impression of Paul? Was he your favorite? Did you find him, as we said earlier, kind of... Yeah.
My favorite of what? No, he wasn't my favorite.
He wasn't? Who was?
No, he soon became my favorite, mind you.
She liked John better.
Joan London.
Sorry about that.
Oh, she did like John better?
John.
Yeah?
So, I mean, what taste? You know what I mean,
Dave?
Dave?
Doesn't it?
Well, it's not easy, is it, Paul?
No accounting for taste, you know, these women. Well, I mean, what can you do, Dave?
Paul, what did you do to win her over?
Oh, that's a long story.
He's not telling it.
I don't think we can go into that one right now.
No?
No, we have to wait for cable TV for that one.
Do you get any, Linda, did you ever get any nasty letters from other women? I mean, it was a fantasy for millions of young girls in the 60s. I mean, Paul was, even to talk with him or meet him or touch him, much less to marry him. Was there any fantasy in it for you as a girl of your early 20s at the time?
No, not really. No, I don't get that many letters either. A few nice ones here and there.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Paul, we talked about a generation gap back at the time when you all were mesmerizing teenagers as the Beatles at the time. And your style as the Beatles, the long hair and so forth, kind of symbolized the generation gap. You're a father now, certainly you have several children, you have a daughter 18. And, you know, we're in another age now, sort of. Do you feel any generation gap now? Is there any between you and your children? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that there's a little bit of one. When I was a lot younger, I used to think that when I grew up and if I ever got to be a parent, that I would be much more understanding than my parents were. But then you get to be that parent, and you say you're a parent of a teenager. And I find myself being like my parents were, and I wish I was a lot more liberal and stuff. But for instance, when you're the father of a teenage girl, I know what I was like when I was a teenage boy, so I try and warn her about that kind of stuff, you know, so...
What were you like, Paul?
Oh, terrible.
Oh, you were?
Shocking.
Shocking? What values do you try to, both of you, and Linda first, what kind of values do you try to teach your children now, and different from perhaps your values maybe of the 60s?
I just try and get them to be normal, just regular people, try and understand people, because there's a lot of tension going on in the world now. To be calm, really, you know, not take anything too seriously. That's my thing.
How difficult is it, Paul, you have made such enormous amounts of money, how do you, and I know you like your privacy and you try to maintain some kind of a, quote, normal life for your children. How do you do that? I mean, how do you maintain a normal life?
Yeah, I don't know, really. We somehow managed to do it. Obviously, like, it's not as normal as it would have been if I was still living in Liverpool and it was 20 years ago or something, but for the kind of position that we're in, actually our kids go to normal schools, they don't go to sort of private schools, so that's one way. We don't do things in a very fancy way. For instance, we haven't got a nanny, things like that. Linda looks after the kids herself. We've got a ridiculously small house with 4 kids and 2 bedrooms, would you believe? And So by doing things like that, just not living with a big style, it just seems to naturally keep pretty close and intimate.
Is it good or is it good or not good for your children that you're such a huge star?
I don't know really. Obviously, like it has its drawbacks, but it has its advantages too. And they don't seem freaked out by it. You know, they understand that, like, you know, Daddy's on television occasionally and stuff. But I don't know. You'd have to judge by meeting them whether they'd gone crazy. I think they're fine on it, you know, and it's just one of the things. It's just an occupational hazard.
Linda, how will you explain to your James when he gets a little older? He's 3 now. How will you explain to him? Oops, the lights went off. We can still see you, though. No, we can still see it. It looks fine.
Oh,
it looks fine.
you?
In fact, Paul, you look a little better if you want to know the truth.
Thank you.
Leave them off in that
Turn
case.
them off again. I look better.
Linda, how will you try to explain to your James, now 3, later on, how would you explain, quote, the Beatles, unquote?
I actually don't think I'd explain it, you know. I think I'd play me. We always play the music, and he'd see the films on telly, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't sit down and say, now, Daddy was a Beatle, and I'd do a lot of things just naturally. If he had any questions about it, I'd tell him what I thought. But I don't think it's a problem, really. It's quite nice, in truth.
Paul,
He's not a bin man, he's a Beatle.
Excuse me, lights again. Paul, there's a new interview out that John, you mentioned John a while ago, Lennon did.
Yeah.
And he talks very openly without going into details, but he seems to have a lot of resentment, competition with you. And he says you kind of died creatively in a way, and he didn't keep track of you, but he said Long Winding Road was your last gasp. How? He seems resentful of you. Do you know why, or?
I don't know. I can guess and stuff, you know, but I'll tell you, after all of that stuff has sort of gone down over the years, I actually kind of keep a bit quiet now, because, I mean, anything I say he gets resentful of. So, I don't know, really. I mean, it's just a weird one, you know. I don't quite know why he thinks like that. I mean, what do you do about that? I really just shut up these days about it. I think it's the best policy, David.
And you go ahead and keep writing wonderful music and taking care of your family.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I'm enjoying myself. You know, I'm having a good time, and I don't think I've had my last gasp. So, you know, I mean...
You sure don't look it. Linda, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, and to Paul.